Good evening, everybody, and welcome to On the Road with Mike Artman. My name is Denny Dwyer. I'm the coordinator of community education for the Port Huron Area School District. And something we did very interesting this spring with our community education program is to offer some field trips that grew out of a class called Off the Beaten Path. The class was taught by my guest tonight, Mr. Mike Artman. And Mike, maybe you can tell us a little bit about, I know you're an extensive traveler and everything, how did this whole class and then subsequently the field trips come to be?
My wife and I, we love to travel. It's sort of like a hobby, and about 7 years ago we decided to organize some kind of a formal class, and we offered it through the community college because people were coming to us all the time just to ask for travel information. And as time went on, then people were asking, well, why don't we just travel to some of these places as well? And so the trips really are an extension of the course.
Okay, and we started actually with community education offering the Off the Beaten Path classes, which were sort of like travelogue seminar type things.
It's more like a resource course where we try to show you places to go off of the main highways, and we also try to educate people as far as how to travel to various inns. Basically, we primarily try to focus on bed and breakfast and inning.
Okay, and I guess that's where the name Off the Beaten Path comes from. These are off the byways kind of a thing. They're really interesting places that most people probably would not even see.
Yeah, exactly. We're trying to get people away from the Holiday Inn, Howard Johnson's type of travel and try to get them into a very unusual, very unique place, and also where they're interacting with people. Right. I think that's the key of inning would be the innkeepers, where you're interacting with other people. Okay, so we start with the classes. We had, I think, 30 or 40 people at least involved in the classes in the fall. And then come the winter program is when we decided to expand. And that's when we did Off the Beaten Path Goes on the Road. And subsequently what we're going to talk about tonight is those field trips, how they went. And maybe you could talk about, I know you have thought about doing those for a while too. The idea came to you a long time ago. Yeah, we originally have taken trips before, and then we sort of put it on the back burner, and now we're doing this again. And we've gone on 3 trips so far this spring. We've gone on to Marshall, Michigan in March, excuse me. And then we went to the Canadian Inns in April, and now we've also done the Amish weekend in May. Okay, based on all 3 of those trips, I know the people that talk to me are really excited about them, and I know before we get done, we're also going to talk about some of the things that are coming in the future. So if there's some interesting things for the folks at home, they might want to keep tuned to that and sort of see, what's coming up down the road. Yeah, we're very pleased with the response. In fact, we weren't really sure what to expect when we offered the class back in February as far as the trips are concerned. But every trip was a go, and we filled every trip with the amount of people that we had. Terrific. And each trip is unique, and I guess that's where we're going to get a chance to go through these sort of one at a time and get a chance to see the people that were involved. We have some slides that you were nice enough to bring along with you that'll show us some of the things that you saw with the group and also some of the people that were involved, which will be fun. None of these are too personal. That's true.
These are we
could have brought other ones. But
we're going to stay away from those. I guess in order that we did them, maybe we could then go on to the slides.
That sounds fine. So back in March, what we do is try to offer 3 very different types of trips. And so our first trip was back in March, and we offered a Victorian home weekend in Marshall, Michigan. And what we did was to stay at the National House, which is the oldest operating in the state of Michigan. And it's an all-inclusive weekend where you would stay for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It would include your meals as well as your lodging, also the home tour on Saturday night, and it would also include your meals.
I know one of the slides, it starts off with the fountain, and then obviously the National House itself, which looks like a really interesting kind of a place. What's the inside like?
It's very country. When you get to the inn, you'll be greeted by the innkeeper. Like I said, it's a country, and it's an example of a country, and it's not a Victorian inn like we have here in town. Okay. And like I said, it is the oldest operating inn in the state of Michigan. It was a bicentennial project as far as restoration. Okay. So it's been around since 1976 as far as the current inn.
And you worked with this innkeeper basically to set up the details?
Yeah, we worked with the innkeepers on all of the trips. This trip was sponsored by the National House. Okay. As compared to the one that we took in May.
Okay. So. Maybe we take a look at our next slide, and this is some of the interior.
Yeah, as you see from the photograph, like I said, this is a country inn as compared to, as I mentioned before, the Victorian inn. And also here you have, or this photograph here shows the opening welcoming party that we had, or the welcoming reception that we had that night on Friday when we got there.
That was it. You got there Friday night, you stayed Saturday, came back Sunday?
Yeah, you get there on Friday night, there's a welcoming party where you meet everyone who is staying at the inn.
Okay, and in this case, like with the welcoming party, what was the ratio? Like how many of our people were there, and there was people from other
I
areas?
think we booked half of the inn for the weekend, so we had approximately 6 or 7 rooms.
Okay.
And so you have a welcoming party on Friday night, and then Saturday basically you have a lot of free time, so you're not locked into a certain itinerary for the whole time. Saturday night you have a gourmet dinner with the owners of the homes that you would be going through. Also they have an hors d'oeuvre party or a cocktail party before. Then you have the home tour itself.
Oh, okay. So in the welcome reception mainly was just to kind of get everybody...
To meet the innkeeper and also just to meet the other people who are staying at the inn with you, as well as even getting acquainted with the people that went with us. A lot of the people that went on that trip didn't know everyone, right. So even the people from Port Huron were getting acquainted.
Oh, and then you got to get a chance to mingle with everybody.
And this group mixed very, very well. I mean, it was a total success.
That's the fun part. Okay. And so, there's some other things that we had, some shots of the trip, which some of this stuff
gives you
really
an example as far as some of the bedrooms that if you were to book a trip like this. These are some of the rooms at the National House.
Okay.
So they range from, in this case, some of the rooms are country, some are Victorian, but for the most part it is a country inn.
That's the nice part. This is so unique. And now, is this?
This is not the inn. This is the Honolulu House, which is right across the street. Like I said, the focal point of the first trip was to take a home tour at night. It would be a candlelight home tour. Okay. And sometimes the Honolulu House would be featured. Other times, homes such as this.
And these are some of the home tours you took?
We've been through all of these homes, and these are the types of homes that you would be viewing. Oh. They're private dwellings, they're private residences. The people have restored the homes. They love to show off their homes, and I guess the reason for the success.
Yeah. Okay.
And then here's our first group that we took back in March as we were leaving on Sunday to come home. And everyone thoroughly enjoyed themselves.
I know we talked to them about evaluations of the trip and so on, and they were really, they loved going and would certainly like to go back again. So I think that's the interesting part is this is something that most people would not do, maybe on their own, and you really took care of all the details. Basically, all they had to do was just be at the right place at the right time.
Exactly. That's what we try to do, is try to get people. The hardest thing is to get people to go to an inn to begin with. Once you get them there, then they will probably go back on their own, but just to get them there, that's, I think, the big hurdle. And I know this Marshall trip, you talked about that in one of the classes, and I remember a lot of people mentioning that sort of piqued their curiosity to want to go see this place now, because you talked about what I'm trying to do, I think, with the program, with the community education program right now, is I'm offering the travel logs where I will show them where we can go, and then the trips are sort of an extension. So I'm getting them interested by the travel logs. Then already we have a trip signed, I already booked for October.
Perfect example of our community education process that you're doing there, where we're getting the ideas from the people in the classes and subsequently setting them up.
And also we're open to ideas. If somebody wants to go someplace, then we would check to see if we could do that.
Okay.
A couple of years ago, some people wanted to go to Elora, Ontario, and so we checked into the Elora Mill Inn, and we were able to then take the group there. So if people want to go to a specific spot, we could probably arrange that as well.
Okay, and again on the idea that these are all unique trips, we did the one-day trip, April 30th, to the Canadian Inns. Maybe you can tell us a little bit of why was that unique from the other trips?
Well, the other 2 trips were weekend trips. A lot of people said they could not go for an entire weekend, but they could go for a day. So we offered a day trip to Canada, and we decided to go to the Ben Miller Inn, which is a former woolen mill outside of Goderich, Ontario. And we went there and we had lunch, and then we came back to the Little Inn, which is in Bayfield, and we had an afternoon tea.
Okay. Now, one-day trip, you left in the morning?
We leave around 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, and we returned around 6 or 7 o'clock at night.
Which I know from the standpoint when we were registering people was a real nice facet of it. For example, senior citizens that didn't want to go for a weekend, they just wanted to go the one day. And yet, in that one day, they saw a couple of different inns. And again, I think the key is they get a chance, as you said, the other trip was they get a chance to mingle with the other folks and meet some new people. And
they get to meet other people, but also get a chance to compare. We like to expose them to as many types of inns as possible. What's nice about the Ben Miller is that the Ben Miller is a very commercial trip, or it's not a commercialized inn, but it's a larger inn, whereas the Little Inn is a smaller inn. And it gives them a chance to compare 2 different types.
Okay, and the innkeepers at these inns obviously are real wide open to having these groups come in and ready to do the tours, and certainly love the opportunity to bring groups in like the one that you did.
Well, they're very receptive, of course, because we're bringing them business and hopefully return business too. And that's one of the questions on our evaluation. Would you go back to the Ben Miller or to the Little Inn? and everyone has circled yes. So.
Which is our end result. To
Sure.
give them a chance to see something new, the idea that they go back on their own sometime, but that first time around, you sort of get them to set up the time to try it out once.
Exactly. So that's the whole concept behind our course as well.
Okay.
Is just to expose people to this type of traveling and hopefully get them off of the expressway and show them what there is to see and do.
Typically, these innkeepers are just really into
That's the
people
key.
and
That's
love
the
to have
key is the
folks.
innkeeper as far as inning is concerned. You could have a beautiful inn, but if the innkeepers don't have the right personality, it just won't make it.
Listen to it.
In fact, our Amish weekend that we took back in May, the former innkeepers, they loved the restoration of the inn, but as far as their personality, they weren't really innkeepers, and as a result, their business never really flourished. Now the new innkeepers have taken over. They're very people-oriented, and as a result, the inn is just growing by leaps and bounds.
And our next trip was actually then to that inn.
It was to the Amish area of Michigan and Indiana.
Okay. And this was a weekend trip, like the.
It was a
first
weekend
one,
trip.
Marshall?
It was the first time we've gone there. We were sort of not concerned, but it was the first time we'd gone there, and we weren't really sure how the people would take to it. And I think of all of the trips, this was probably our most successful.
Okay. Now we talk about this Amish weekend. Where exactly did you go? I guess.
We stayed south of Kalamazoo in a little town called Mendon, and we stayed at the Mendon Country Inn.
Okay.
And then from there on Saturday we went down to Shipshewana, Indiana,
Okay.
which is the heart of the Amish area in Indiana.
Okay.
And we were able. What we did on that trip was, we told people where they could go. We gave them extensive maps and brochures as far as our recommendations. We said, Saturday you're on your own. The only thing is at 5 o'clock we're meeting at this restaurant for dinner.
Okay.
And then we had our breakfast that morning. We said goodbye to everyone, and at 5 o'clock we all got together and we had a chance then to tell what we'd found, what we saw for the day, or during the day.
And again, as each of these, as we said before, is so unique. Now with this one, you pretty much set up some of the extra things. Again, the extra activities that sometimes the innkeepers will set up an itinerary of things you can do, and in this case, you sort of did that yourself.
The Marshall trip was pre-planned. Basically, we got the people to Marshall, and the inn took over. On this trip, we had to organize it all on our own.
Okay.
We were working with the innkeeper on that.
Okay.
And I said that's why we're very proud of the way it turned out, because it was a total success.
What kinds of things then did you get included in that trip? What kinds of little nice things that?
In the morning, on Saturday morning, we were supposed to have an Amish quilter come in and explain explain how she makes her quilts and so on. She was not able to come that day, so the innkeeper felt bad, and he was able to then get us onto an Amish buggy ride. And people just thought that was great.
That'd be neat.
And then also on Sunday, we were able to go to a house called King's Mill. It's a private home, but it's an older couple, and they've restored a mill. They have a mill pond and a dam on their property. The gardens, or the yard basically is a huge garden that she has landscaped. And they're just very interesting people, and it's a place that nobody would ever be able to go to unless they knew the people to contact to get there.
Right. Okay, and that's again the key, that you kind of provide the contacts and the opportunity to, someone if they're so busy, this kind of gives them the time to say, now it's time to go. I should try
Exactly.
this.
Basically, we get the people to, well, we hope we get them to sign up for the trip, then we get them there, and then we show them what to do. But
Okay. Any other special things you remember, like about the Mendon trip that unique?
well, the buggy ride, I think, was probably the most interesting. Everyone talked about that. Also, we try to, on Saturday night, we would try to have some kind of entertainment or whatever. That night we had folk singing. The innkeeper was a folk singer. In fact, he traveled around the country researching some of the folk songs. And then he had a local folk singer coming from the area, and then the two of them did a little performing for us that night. So we always try to have some kind of entertainment on Saturday night, be it a home tour, in this case folk singing. Also, you're by Cola, Michigan, so we're thinking of maybe having a magician come over and put on a magic show.
That's right. That's the
or
magic
something
capital
like that,
of
yes.
Michigan, whatever, yeah. Okay, terrific. Now, overall, the 3 sets of trips, what kind of numbers are we talking about? How many people got involved in these?
On the Marshall trip, we had approximately 12 people. I think we had between 10 and 15 on the Canadian trip. And in the Amish weekend, we had 20 people go, and we had a waiting list of 4 to 6. So I mean, we could have accommodated probably 25. The only problem was the inn only could accommodate 20. So we had really booked the whole inn for the weekend.
So we started off well. There's no doubt about that. What are some of the things that we're kicking around to maybe do in the future?
Well, one of the things we did on the way back from the Amish weekend was to stop back in Marshall again to show some people some new places that are going to be opening up this summer. And one is McCarthy's Bear Creek Inn. And we stopped there and we met the innkeepers. We introduced them to Mike and Beth McCarthy, and they showed us what they're working on. They're converting a barn into guest rooms is supposed to be opened in July. When the people saw the facility, they were so impressed that when we said we were booking a trip there in October, they've already signed up for it.
Oh,
in fact, a lot of the people said that whenever we do a trip, they want us to let them know,
Sure.
and they will go.
Okay. Well,
So, I mean, we've already, I think, have the October trip booked already, or at least, you know, fairly.
Sure. Well, it certainly started off well. I think that's the key, when you start something and do it as well as you organize this time around. And I certainly had a great time working with you, because it's an interesting and it's a unique program that a lot of people really wanted to see happen, and we put it together. And again, some of those ideas that come in the future. Plus, we have another set of classes that we'll be offering again to sort of let people know, what kind of areas are out there, and maybe spark some ideas for some new trips in the future.
Yeah, I'll be offering the travel logs again in the fall. I'll be starting again with the ins and outs of Michigan, which would concentrate on some of the ends that we've gone, and I would be explaining the trips that we'll be taking again in the fall. And then also, I said, we'll be taking a trip probably in October, possibly 2 in October, and possibly 1 in November.
Okay. And I know this summer, your summer vacation, you're going to spend some time out there, as we call researching, but you're going to call more traveling out there to see what other places there are to see, and some other interesting possibilities for people.
Yeah, this summer we'll be gone approximately one month researching some places down south, and so I'll be offering some new units in the fall from our travels this summer.
Right. Okay. Sounds terrific. I'm really looking forward to, again, coming back in the fall and doing that. We certainly started off on the right step, and we've had nothing but positive, feedback on the kinds of things. And as you said, we're hoping to maybe find a way to provide transportation and fix some of the things that maybe we could do even better this next time around.
Well, we're very excited about doing it again. Like I said, it's just an area that we love to travel, and it gives us a chance to travel probably more than we normally could. And so we're very excited about it as well.
Terrific. Well, Mike, I'm looking forward to next fall. I think it's going to be even bigger and better. Thanks for being with us tonight. This is On the Road with Mike Artman, and keep tuned in the future. There might be some more things coming your way as far as trips and the travel log classes.
Thank you.